Hey guys, this is Max Headspace 9mm, and I have with me tonight various implements of destruction that are germane to the topic of which we are talking about. The topic is how to prepare to live in an uncertain world with an uncertain future. Now, I'm not fear-mongering here. I'm not trying to put any kind of fear into people's minds. What I'm actually doing is starting a video series that is empowering. It actually makes a lot of peace in times like these. And so what we're going to discuss tonight is how to take steps to empower yourself for what you can't control. If the government does something you don't like, if we have, some people think there's going to be civil war, all kinds of things, or really, really difficult economic times ahead, well, there's some very good tips that I've got for you that will help you prepare for times just like that. And if you're thinking, well, I don't know that I have the money for anything, beyond what I can just get by with, well, I'm going to try to show both sides of preparation. One side, of course, is if you got the money, here's what you should do. The other side is if you don't have much money, here's how you can get by in a very clever way for next to nothing. So what happens if everything goes down? People kind of fear about that. Well, I want you to think about this for a minute. If you sat down and you calculated all the money that you are going to spend on insurance during your entire lifetime, from start to end. Now we're talking about car insurance, house insurance, medical insurance, all of that. For some of it, it's going to go up into the over $100,000. Insurance adds up over time to be a huge chunk of your income and your expenditures. So, being that you spend that much money on the unknown, and to just give yourself a little bit of peace of mind and preparation for what you don't know is in your future, why don't you spend a little bit of time being proactive and putting away time capsules for an uncertain future? Now, these are things that you can do when times are good, and you have the time, you have a little bit of extra resources that will give you peace of mind about the future. So, for example, there's a lot of things that people are thinking they would need. If we have an economic collapse, if we have civil war, we have all kinds of things, people might be without resources. They might be without food and clothing and all kinds of things. Well, one of the things that people have done for thousands of years, because this is a concern that people have had as long as there have been people, they have buried things and hidden them underground. So I'm going to show you some ways that you can start today to create time capsules for yourself. They will have enough provisions in them to give you what you need to survive if you have to leave your home, or if you have people break into your house and take your food, provisions, what have you. And these are also going to be really handy for storing guns. Now, if you plan to have some kind of a boating accident where you lose all your guns, it's better to use this system that I'm going to tell you about before that happens, so that you actually can go and get them eventually, along with ammo and along with food and clothing and fire. And that if the worst scenario happens, you will be prepared, because nobody is going to do this for you. If you think the government is looking out for you, think again. Look at what's going on right now. Do you really think the government cares about your needs and what you're dealing with? I mean, the evidence is overwhelming. They've been deliberating for 8 or 9 months now on trying to get some kind of economic stimulus to help people with their bills and their rent and all of this. And they're fighting back and forth. We got a check, 8 or 9 months ago. And they're still trying to fight over the amount of the check that's supposed to be going out now. Now, if you're reliant on the government to get by in difficult times like we're experiencing right now, you will be disappointed. You've got to be proactive. You've got to take charge of your life. You've got to do some things so that if things get tough, you can rely on yourself. So I'm going to start teaching some very handy self-reliance tips that I learned from my parents and my grandparents way back, because they went through the Great Depression. These techniques work. They work today just as well as they did back then. And I've got a few little extra tweaks that I've invented of my own. Okay, so here's what you need to do. Create a way to seal whatever you need from the elements. Now, if you have good money and if you got the money to spend, you can buy buckets. Now, there are really nice buckets, brand new food grade buckets that you can buy. There's probably a store somewhere in your town that has these. If not, you can get them on the internet. Buckets come in different sizes, anywhere from 2 gallon, like 5 gallon like this. I've even seen 7, 8, 9, and 10 gallon buckets. They're taller, but they're the same diameter here. And the best buckets that you can get have a band clamp around the rim. You just pull it to the side, this ring comes off, and the bucket lid just lifts off. Now, those are generally used for food grade, food safe storage. That's what would be best. That's the easiest, and that will give you the best results. But if you don't have the money for that, because those buckets do cost a bit, all you have to do is save your old paint buckets. You could save sheetrock mud buckets. You can wash them out. Now, if the paint has dried, a lot of times you can peel it out. It'll come out in one big sheet because it doesn't like to stick to plastic very well. As long as you have a rubber ring inside this lid and you can snap it down, you can get a good seal with these buckets. And they have a handle so you can use them for carrying and what have you. If you have to bug out, these are going to be great because you can carry one in each arm and you can move from place to place with everything in a bucket, protected from moisture and the elements. It also makes a really handy seat. If you do happen to be out in the woods roughing it, you'd be surprised at how useful a bucket can be. I mean, just having something to sit on is really nice. And most of us that are used to using toilets, we don't like to not have something like that when we're roughing it in the woods. So you can actually use this as kind of a makeshift toilet. You can go carry water, you can carry whatever you want with a bucket. Buckets can be very, very helpful, very useful. So think about buckets, think about ways to get buckets, make sure they have a good rubber ring seal in the top and they snap down. Now, when you do snap a bucket down, if you don't have the band clamp variety, you'll want to take maybe your foot and stomp the lid down, go all the way around the outside edge. Don't do the center, you can break it. You can use a rubber mallet to snap this lid down. You could even use like a 2x4 to do it. If you use a metal hammer, you can bruise this and damage it really badly. So I would recommend you be very cautious against using a metal hammer to seal buckets. But buckets are fantastic. Now, what do you do with a bucket? Well, this is where it gets really interesting. You can take a bucket like this. Now, if the bucket is dirty, let's say you can't get all the paint out of it, or you just kind of feel like, this is gross. You can line this with a plastic garbage bag, and it's as clean as a clean bucket. All you got to do is just put it in there, and then when you start filling it up with the things I'm going to tell you about, you can then gather it up and tuck it all inside and snap the lid on, and it's about as clean as a clean bucket. And a plastic trash bag is cheap and easy to come by. That's another thing you should get a bunch of. Okay, so what do you do with this? Well, that's where the beauty of this comes in. If you have a few extra firearms, maybe some of those scary assault rifles or high capacity magazines, or some of those other evil things that are just too dangerous for you right now, and you pretty much want to get them out of harm's way so that you can't have access to them in these times when that's the messaging. Well, an AR-15 can be broken down pretty readily to fit in a bucket like this. Now, you may not be able to get a full 16-inch barreled upper in here, but most of my AR pistols will easily go in here, and the lower will easily go in as well. You can take guns apart pretty easily too. And if you have long guns that just will not fit in something like this, you can go to the hardware store and buy some PVC pipe. Now, most hardware stores like Home Depot and so forth will kind of limit the pipe size. They don't get much above, say, 4 inches inside diameter. But you can go to plumbing specialty stores where contractors go and get big, herking drain pipe with plastic caps, and you can make any size and any length plastic time capsule you want to using these kind of things. The PVC is going to be more expensive, but it'll also take an awful lot more abuse without leaking. So if you have guns that you want to store under the earth, these are a great way to do it. Now, what else are you going to do? Because you got a lot of room in here. You know, you put a gun in something like this. Well, here's where the magic is. I did a video about 4 or 5 years ago about the secrets of storing firearms long term. And it was a bit tongue-in-cheek. It was kind of hokey, but the principle is you go down to Walmart or someplace like that, you get yourself a seal-a-meal machine and the bags that come with it for food storage. You can seal a gun, you can seal ammo, you can seal gun parts, you can seal socks and clothes, you can seal lighters, you can seal anything you want in a seal-a-meal. So you could take your gun parts, put them in here. Well, you got a lot of available wasted space in there. You get all those things in there that you want, like a lighter and tools and so forth, some ammo. Then what? Well, the beautiful thing about that is, think about it. You're always going to need food. And we're used to food being readily available. You can just go down to the store and get some. Well, if you're going to be looking for guns later on, why not use the most usable, eatable desiccant I can think of? Dried rice or dried beans or both. You could literally take and pour that stuff in here loose, and it'll fill up all the cracks around your seal-a-meal bags of gun parts. It'll act as a desiccant, and it'll be a handy source of food and sustenance if you need it later on. Dried rice and dried beans are cheap and readily available. Get bags of it, big bags of it. You can pick it up for very, very little money. It goes a long way, and if everything falls apart and supermarkets no longer have food, you've got enough in one of these buckets to feed one person probably for a month. All you got to do is figure out how to boil it and prepare it. And that's where, in a future video, I'm going to be talking about some things that you will want to have on your list if everything goes sideways. Now, we all know there's a lot of things we take for granted. We expect our internet to always be there and our phones to always work, and for the electricity to always work when we plug in the outlet cord. But that's in our minds. We expect there always to be food at the supermarket. We know that we live in a fantasy world if we think that those things cannot be interrupted. We expect our cars to always work. Well, an EMP would take care of that really quick, because almost every car made in the last 20, 25 years has a computer. So be prepared for all of that to fail you, and start thinking about what you would actually value during times like that. Okay, so here's what you do. Let's just say you've taken your gun, taken it apart, put it in seal-a-meal bags, vacuumed out the air, put it inside the bucket along with some ammo and maybe some other things you might want, like disposable lighters and some handy little tools and things like that. You pour in your beans, you pour in your rice, and you got it full. Then what do? Well, you seal this lid down. And then what do? Well, you can store this in the garage, you can store it anywhere, but what I'm suggesting you do, and I'm going to show you right now what you can do, is how to hide it so that only you know where to find it. This is a scenario where you do not want anybody else to be able to mess with it. You want to know that it's there and that you can retrieve it at a later date. Sure, you could just leave it in your garage. You could leave it anywhere. No one's going to notice a bucket or care anything about it. But if you want an added measure of protection and you want to hide it where no one's going to find it but you, here's what you do. Take 2 garbage bags, hefty garbage bags, and put them over the bucket, bottom to top, so the opening is at the top. Each time you put the bag on, gather the top of the bag together and suck out the air. That's as the opposite of blowing up a balloon, okay? You're sucking the air out. The bags will compress and form tightly to the side of your bucket, and then zip tie the top. Do that 2 times, okay? Then you take some tools that I'm going to show you. In fact, I've got them right here. Many of you have seen these before. You know, if you dig post holes, you know what I'm talking about. These are really great for digging a deep, narrow hole. Okay? Now, what about a bigger hole big enough for this? Well, here's another implement of destruction. This has a T-handle on it. It's an auger. And basically what you do is you just twist this round and round in a clockwise fashion. And they come with a wooden handle. I replaced that with a metal handle a long time ago because I broke the wooden handle. Sometimes you run against rocks and so forth. This thing is about 4 feet long, the handle is right now. And for most post holes, that's great. But if you want to go deeper, I have a young man I know with a lot of incentive. He went down 16 feet into the earth with one of these things. He was trying to create a well. He was looking for water. And what he did was he just went down to the hardware store. This right here has a pipe thread. You just unscrew this T right here, and you can put a coupler, and then you can put as long a piece of black pipe as you want on there, and then put this on the other end, tighten it down. Pipes tighten clockwise just like this thing cuts the earth clockwise. So you're not going to back this thing out just by using it normally. You auger down into the earth and then you lift the loose dirt out and you shake it off to the side of the hole. I typically dig about a 3-foot deep hole with one of these in an hour. So it's not that hard. And that's as far as you need to go with one of these buckets. These come in a variety of sizes. You can get them on Amazon. I've had this one for a long, long time. Now, there's all different kinds of soil you're going to run up against. What if you hit a rock? One of the best tools that you can ever get, and you will love, is this. I call it a digging bar. I'm not sure what the technical name is, but it's got a chisel point on one end. It's made out of hex stock, and it's got a sharp spear point on the other. And it's about, 5.5, 6 feet long. I have dug many a holes and broken many a rock with this. In fact, you can break concrete with it. You can break sidewalks. You can break driveways. This thing works better than a sledgehammer for breaking concrete. It's designed to break rocks. And so if you come up against rocks and digging down with your auger, you just break them up with this and continue to dig. And then you can dig a hole in just about any kind of soil. All right, now what happens is, once you get down deep enough, you lower this down, and it's got those plastic bags. Now, why the plastic bags? What's that all about? Well, it's a real easy thing to do, for one, and it doesn't cost very much. But if you actually need to retrieve this someday, and you probably will, you will thank me for the plastic bags. What happens to soil over time is that the pressure and the moisture compact that soil around objects in the earth, and they become part of like a dirt clod. Now, if you just put the bucket in the ground like this, what's going to happen? Well, you're going to have to dig all the way down to here and all the way around it to get it out of there, because it's going to be like a cork in a bottle. But with those plastic bags, all you got to do is dig down and expose the top, cut open the bag, grab the bail, which hopefully is up. Hopefully you remember to seal the bag that way. And you'll be able to just pull it straight out without resistance, because the bag might want to stay in the earth, but the bucket will not, and they'll slip against each other real nice. So that makes it a lot easier to get this out later on. You'll thank me if you actually have to do it. So this doesn't have to cost much money. It takes a little bit of time. It takes the tools that I showed you, but you may already have those tools yourself. You can do this in your backyard. I would recommend if you do decide to store some of these things in your backyard, you go down a little bit deeper, deep enough that metal detectors will have a hard time detecting these objects. A couple feet, maybe 3 feet. And also make sure that as you're innocently digging a hole in your backyard and your neighbors can look out their window and see what you're doing, make sure you don't put this in the ground during the daytime when they might be watching. Put it in the ground in the middle of the night, maybe 2 or 3 in the morning, without any flashlights or anything. The last thing in the world you want is to come home from a vacation and find a gaping hole in your backyard where your stash used to be. So, I hope this handy little tip helps you to store up ammo, guns, food, and what have you for a rainy day. Because rainy days are coming, I believe. They come to everyone. We've just been very blessed to live in extremely convenient, safe times. But I believe some turbulence is headed our way. I hope I'm wrong, but if it is, you will thank me if you have done these things to prepare for it. Now, I've got a lot more videos of this type coming. These are easy things to talk about, and I enjoy sharing them. I've got videos where I explain how you can train and sharpen your shooting skills without firing a single shot. I've got videos where I talk about the climate of what is likely to happen with the Democrats setting their sights on your firearms and magazines, and what is most likely to happen and what you can do to prepare for it. And all of the things that I've got are designed to empower you, to make you a stronger person and more capable and prepared if everything goes sideways. And they're easy things. They're not hard at all. You just have to think ahead and think about what you've maybe never had to think about before. So until then, this is Max Headspace 9mm. Have a good one.